Big film review Tuesday coming up. Fran Duffy's in studio to tell Zach Berman and me why the defense was so impressive and why Jalen Hurts has a few things to work on. Get your iced tea and lemonade ready. PHLY Eagles podcast comes up next. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Welcome to the Tuesday show. Bo Wulf, Fran Duffy to my left, Zach Berman looking very serious with his hands clasped to Fran's left. How's everybody doing?
Doing good. I'm excited. We have a lot to talk about today.
Lots to talk about, a lot to get to. Zach, what's going on? You're curious about the Panunzio photo.
Do you know who Shane Andrus is?
Shane Andrus.
Yeah, Shane Andrus.
I know Sean Andrews.
No,
Yeah.
Shane Andrus was a kicker at
Get
Murray
your Michael
State
Phelps
in 2002.
Okay,
He kicked a game-winning field goal in a win
Michael
over
Phelps.
Eastern Illinois. Tony Romo was the quarterback for Eastern Illinois. Do you know who the coach of that Murray State team was?
Tracy Murray.
Joe Panunzio. I assume that's why
Hmm.
his picture was up there today.
Well, I think it's a little. First of all, it makes me laugh, and the reason it makes me laugh is because we have the Wire photo service, and it says on the Wire photo that that's Vic Fangio, and there are actually a couple instances of Joe Panunzio showing up as somebody else. It makes me laugh. I was looking for a photo for the show, film review, maybe Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts looking at something on the sideline together. Nothing there. Looking for Vic Fangio, and Panunzio comes up, and I think it's funny. So there we go.
But if you wanted Nick
There's also a bunch of
exactly. If you wanted Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts talking to each other, you can actually see Kevin Patullo talking to Jalen Hurts, identified as Nick Sirianni.
And I thought about that one as well.
Okay.
But, we got to keep ourselves entertained.
We find our ways to do that.
Yeah, it's not hard to do that here.
Okay. Some breaking news before we get to the breakdown. We're going to start with the defense. We're going to be happy, and then we're going to talk about the offense and why maybe things are not quite as rosy as they seem in a 28-3 victory. But Zach, do you want to give us the scoop on the reporting of a potential roster change?
Yeah, according to Jordan Schultz, shout out to Jordan. He's at Bleacher Report now. He took that job earlier this month. I'm sorry, not Bleacher Report. Fox Sports. Fox Sports. I apologize. I screwed that up.
Shout out to Jordan.
He's at Fox Sports now. Shout out to Jordan.
He took that job. He sure did.
And according to Jordan Schultz from Fox Sports, the Eagles are releasing Parris Campbell.
Au revoir, mon ami.
This opens a roster spot.
Merci beaucoup pour le souvenir.
The Eagles can activate Anaya Smith from IR, who his practice window is coming to a close soon. If they wanted a third tight end for this week, they could activate Albert O, who returned to practice last week. So the Eagles do have options there. I would think Anaya Smith would make sense from a receiver perspective. The Eagles could always elevate CJ Uzomah from practice squad as a third tight end this week if that's the route they wanted to go, but we will see.
I've been thinking about Albert Okwuegbunam and how we always call him Albert O. Why don't we just call him Alberto?
Sure.
Alberto Okwuegbunam.
Yeah. I gotta say, Bo, you tell us we have so much that we need to discuss in these Tuesday and Thursday shows with Fran. It's like we can't fit anything. I want to do this interview for a Thursday show. You're like, I don't know. We have so much we need to get to. We're discussing the Alberto. Yes.
And so then I went through the rest of the roster.
Okay.
And I tried to figure out who else would that be fun for. And I think my second favorite is Brandon Ram.
Okay.
It's a good one, too.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I do want to make a quick note here. We're going to have something. Well, if you go to allphly.com to read Fran's outstanding film reviews, those are up. I have stories that are up. Les Bowen has a column that's coming later today. I look forward to the Wolf's Den when we have them. You can read them now for an introductory offer of $48 a year. So that's a great opportunity if you've been on kind of the fence about being a diehard. We talk about diehard every day on the show for over a year. But if you've been on the fence, please, you can sign up for $48, see our content, and I promise you will be satisfied, especially with the film reviews.
An introductory offer, does that mean you get to meet somebody?
No, it's an offer that is an introductory rate. And then thereafter, there's the full rate.
Now, is that the same bottle of Hawaiian water?
It's the same bottle, not the same water. So I had the water. I had the bottle in my car. I didn't have any water, and so I filled it up over in the sink.
Got it.
So it's not from Hawaii. It's from the.
You can't count down the alkaline.
It's from the streets of Philadelphia. Yeah.
It's from the streets of Philadelphia.
Straight from the Schuylkill.
Take it easy.
Yeah, a little Bruce Springsteen for you there, right? Joey likes that music
We are
reference,
off to
right?
a roaring start here. All right, we're going to get to the defense. Before we do that, Zach, anything from the coordinators that is worth unpacking?
Yeah, it'll probably match up with what Fran's going to talk about, but a big emphasis from Vic Fangio was that with the increased production in pass rush, it's really the rushing coverage marriage, if you will. That you're
So he wants us to do that bit.
That you're seeing them work together. That's a big point of emphasis from Vic, and then we'll kind of get into different things that we'll sprinkle in as we hear from Fran. Regarding Kellen Moore, he was talking about the explosive plays, and he said, really, that's just talent. That's the explosive plays are more a byproduct of like outstanding players performing at that level. He talked about kind of the aggressiveness of that A.J. Brown call that they saw. The Giants were playing real tight on third downs. They thought they'd have an opportunity to hit them there. Michael Clay, they did not have those catastrophic plays this past game, but he does want to clean up the penalties. That's something that came up because those are just simple mental things. A guy like Oren Burks is used to on kickoffs, going at the sound of the kick. He needs to wait for the ball to be caught with the new kickoff rules. And probably most noteworthy there. And this kind of combines Vic Fangio and Michael Clay. Vic Fangio does not want Cooper DeJean returning punts. He didn't want Navarro Bowman covering punts either back with San Francisco. But that's obviously not Vic Fangio's decision. A lot of this really depends, I imagine, on Britton Covey when Britton Covey comes back. And Michael Clay said they are looking at some of these other options, but Cooper DeJean's been really productive there.
I did not listen to Vic. Was it like how?
I think there's a little too much being made of this. I think he's saying if I had my choice, I would not want him out there. But he understands that it's for the better part of the betterment of the team.
That's why I understood that. That's why he brought the Navarro Bowman thing.
Right.
He used that to buttress the point. Like, I didn't want Bowman doing this, but Bowman did it for my entire time in San Francisco. So if Navarro Bowman can play special teams, Cooper DeJean can play special teams.
There we go. All right. Well, let's talk about Cooper DeJean. Let's transition it that way, Fran. And aside from the pass rush finally getting home, and as Vic Fangio said, a lot of that had to do with Daniel Jones having to hold on to the ball a little bit more. You were, according to what you wrote on PHLY.com, perhaps even more impressed with Cooper DeJean in this game than you were in his debut.
Definitely. I think that, when you look at the secondary and the back seven, that's what I was most excited to see, honestly, from this entire game, both sides of the football, was what did the back seven look like on a number of those sacks and just throughout the course of the game, because we saw not just the sacks from Daniel Jones, but a number of throwaways and a number of checkdowns. I mean, his yards per attempt was super, super low in this football game. And so I think that speaks to the way that the back seven performed. I thought Cooper DeJean was outstanding. I thought Nakobe Dean was really good in coverage in this game. Reed Blankenship showed up. Quinyon Mitchell showed up. Darius Slay. You just go across the board, and I felt like everybody kind of showed up.
You said the entire secondary except for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Is that on purpose?
I would say that there were a couple where I was like, oh, that's a good one by CJ, but I think the other guys just showed up more often, in that area. So if we rewind back to the pre-bye right after the Bucs game, we talked about how often players were running free in the secondary, and there was just too much space allowed, and everyone was making a big deal about the press coverage. And I said, look, it's not necessarily about press coverage versus off coverage. It's more about the room allowed, matching those routes once you get up to the second level. And I thought so often in this game, you saw maybe a route coming from the left and a route coming from the right. And you saw CJ Gardner or Cooper DeJean and Nakobe Dean matching those routes perfectly. And I put out a few examples on Twitter. But then if you go into that article on allphly.com, you can see I think I posted like 10 or 11 examples in total from that game. And so for me, that was my biggest takeaway from defense.
Now, Vic Fangio said in his press conference today that they were very heavy zone in this game.
Yep.
The true media numbers bear this out. Just 9% man for the Eagles in this game, by far their lowest of the season. And so that goes into them being able to pass all of that stuff. Well, do you think it was the case of this is our plan going in, or it was like, oh, they're handling this well, let's stay with it?
That's tough to say. I would say that, and one of the things I think a lot of people will look at, it was the Giants and their receiving core isn't much to write home about. That's actually the biggest positive for me in seeing this development, in that when you're talking about matching routes, it doesn't matter if that's Malik Neighbors running the shallow crossing route, or if that's Darius Slayton, or if that's Jerry Rice, or insert receiver here. Who's your favorite?
Blue Cooper.
Blue Cooper. We were just talking about him last week. So Blue Cooper running that shallow crossing route. It doesn't matter who that is. You have to match it, right? And so for me, my biggest takeaway was the fact that they just looked so sound doing it. I don't expect that that's going to be the norm moving forward, because you have a bunch of young players and guys getting accustomed to the scheme. There's going to be peaks and valleys there, but I thought that was a strength of that unit in this game.
Very good. Super chat question from Claude that we will get to when we talk about the offense. So stay tuned, Claude. And I think that is an important thing to remember. And we do this show every day, and it's hard to. What do you raise your eyebrows?
You're right. We did do the show every day.
Yeah.
That is correct. We do the show every day.
Okay, you finish.
Yeah. I didn't interrupt you.
Please, you did interrupt yourself on that one.
I did not say a thing.
The peaks and valleys of it, especially with younger players and inexperienced players, and I make that difference because Nakobe Dean is his third year, but he has not played a ton. He has had a very sort of up and down start to the season. Early on, looked pretty good. He struggled the last couple games heading into this game, and so encouraging to see that take a step forward in this game.
I would say that the concerns I have,
and we're talking beyond the blitzing, which is
no question. To me, the further Nakobe Dean gets from the hash mark, like from the middle of the field, that's where I feel like those limitations really show up.
Interesting.
And to me, it's like a matter of he's not the best athlete in the world. So when he has to work hard to be on his horse to get outside towards the sideline, that's where you see some of those limitations show up. His failure to break down at times, the lack of speed and burst to be able to get. He lost the edge on that one screen to Eric Gray early in the game. So I think that ultimately, if he's working between the hash marks and if he's working vertically, like up and down, straight downhill, that's where I think we see him at his best. He did a really good job of matching some of these routes in this football game. And again, if that's the way that they feel like they can play with him, and look, if they have to play a lot of man, maybe that's where, all right, he's a whole player underneath, and he's a blitzer, and that's it. And that's kind of finding that sweet spot for Nakobe Dean in this scheme. So I think that overall this was probably, it was certainly his best game playing in coverage. And again, it's not, look at him man up on the running back. It's him understanding the routes that are being deployed around him and how to match those routes on the run.
For the sickos who are trying to watch film themselves, what are the plays that stand out when you were impressed with?
So it's
them passing stuff off.
Yep. So I again posted a bunch on the All PHLY on the article that went up on All PHLY this afternoon. So there was the sack by Jalen Carter, the second one by Jalen Carter. That one stands out to me, where it was like a curl route in the middle of the field, and he kind of stepped right in front of that window. There was another one where it was a check down to the running back out of the backfield, and he was able to match the crossing route. So there were a handful from Dean, and then to me, like the ones with DeJean as well, I was just really, really impressed. Again, this has always been a strength of like Avonte Maddox's game as well. I remember there was the game, I think it was against Carson Wentz, his first game playing the Eagles against Washington. They sacked him a bunch of times. What was that? Was it like a 10-sack game, right? A few years back. The pass-offs in that season in 2022 were awesome. And I remember like Avonte Maddox and TJ Edwards and all of those guys. There were so many good examples in that one. This one, not quite to that level, but still I was really impressed with the way that the middle of the field acted in this game.
So you said on the show on Sunday, the post-game show, that you couldn't wait to see that they'll watch the film on the back end to see how that affected the sacks. And Vic Fangio made that point about the sacks, about rush and coverage marrying together. What insight did you glean about how the coverage really affected the pass rush?
Yeah, I think just the big thing is that you don't want receivers obviously running scot-free through the middle of the field, or if if there's a shallow, if you're playing zone coverage, it's not all right. I have to drop to my landmark. This is my part of the desk, and I'm going to stay here. But it's the matchup zone in basketball, right? Where if a guy comes into my area, I have to play man to man within that zone, and if he leaves that zone, I've got to find somebody else to latch onto. And so that's what was really fun for me is like those defenders working on that string where, all right, there's a shallow cross coming from right to left, and there's a hook route coming from the other side. You see Nakobe Dean and Cooper DeJean pass that off where maybe Cooper's on the shallow cross, and he passes the shallow cross over to Nakobe. He goes down in the shallow, and then Nakobe drops off onto the hook route. You know what I mean? Like you see so often that was able to happen in this game.
Why'd you laugh?
I don't think you want me to say why I laughed. Do you want me to? I mean,
what?
Well, no. I mean,
What? Do you feel like that was the first question? Yes.
No, it was a good question.
Okay.
I was laughing because you said, "Did the sacks reflect the back end?" And I was thinking, usually that's more on the front end.
Okay. All right. I thought that I repeated a question that I'm like, I'm listening to the whole thing.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Okay.
I was going to move on.
Okay.
But it had nothing to do with the question you asked. It was a good question.
I was going to interject here.
The mind goes where it goes.
When you talked about how he omitted C.J. Gardner-Johnson and like, was that intentional or not? It did bring up, and this will probably get to the next part of the conversation. It made me think of the press conference today when Vic Fangio was asked a specific question about how Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff have improved as pass rush, have really improved these past few weeks. And he gives his answer about like Nolan. He's like, yeah, Nolan Smith especially has really looked good. And then he goes on about some of the things Nolan Smith did. And then the question came up about Bryce Huff. He's like, yeah, well, there were more pass rush opportunities in this game, right? Yeah. Which is basically his way of saying like Bryce Huff can only do this.
Well, let's ask about that. What did you think of Bryce Huff? I mean, this production-wise was easily his best game of the season. Did he look a little bit juicier to you in this game?
No, I think that has been my thing throughout, is that he still looks like the same athlete. Okay. It's just more that he hasn't been able to win at the top of the rush as often. I think in this one, you saw him. Look, he came out of this game with 5 pressures. He had 2 coming in on the entire season. And so an outstanding performance from that standpoint. I would say a number of his pressures were basically him just kind of running the hoop, where he beat the tackle to the edge. He beat Illuminor to the edge and was able to turn and force Daniel Jones up and out of the pocket. Which is good. Like again, it kind of talks about resetting our expectation for Bryce Huff, and if this is what they're getting, that's all right.
It's a little bit like the Jordan Davis conversation.
Yeah, it's all right. This is better than what they were getting the first 4 weeks, and so that's good. Is it to the level that they were hoping when they gave him that contract? Not yet.
They just need him to be a useful player on third down, and that's all they need.
So far, I would say in this game, he was useful in those pure pass rush situations.
He's the opposite of Mekhi Becton. He loves playing in that stadium.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
seriously,
like the only one.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from the front? Anybody else impress you? And by the way, the Jalyx Hunt snap?
He was unblocked.
I know he was. I know the sack, but like, you see anything? Would you like to see him in the regular defense at all?
The thing is like, at whose expense? It's tough because Bryce Huff's going to get his snaps in those situations. Unless you're just going to completely say Bryce Huff's not playing, then you're not taking his snaps away. You still want BG out there. Nolan, I think, continues to deserve more snaps. You're not taking Josh Sweat's snaps away. So I think for the time being, I think this is what we're going to get from Jalyx Hunt, is like mop-up duty kind of situation. And this one was extreme in that case. But I thought we saw some good things, but he's still going to be very much a work in progress, I think.
And then I asked Vic Fangio the question about Nolan Smith starting. And he was like very matter of fact. He's like, yeah, we were in base, right? That's what Nolan. So it's clear. The playing time has shown this, the film has shown this, but Nolan Smith is the edge rusher or is the edge in base. It's not Bryce Huff. It's not Brent. It's Nolan Smith in that spot.
Yeah, and you think about the sim pressures. He's the one who is most likely to be able to handle those duties well. That makes sense. Yeah.
The Giants came out early in this game with multiple tight ends on the field and motioned out of it into empty like 2 or 3 times. That's why there was the screen grab that now like everyone like laughs at. But 2 years ago we were ready to burn the city down when we saw defensive ends walked out over the slot. But it was BG lined up over Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, Sweat on the first play as well.
Josh Sweat had to do it on the first play. Nolan Smith did it on the second play. And so, but the Giants, like they did it, and then it was just like short stuff underneath, and it's like, yeah, I think if you're Vic Fangio, like that's a win. It's like, all right, let's rally to the football and get off the field on third down.
And then what about the Jordan Davis conversation?
It was weird. That's why I texted you as I was going through yesterday, because I saw the snap counts, and it's all right. He played 11 snaps, but I'm watching, and I'm like, all right, he's on the field in the first play, he's on the field in the second play, he's on the field in the third play, and I'm like, all right, he's played like 10 of the first 13 snaps.
Right.
And where did he go? Like, there was no injury announcement, so I just thought it was kind of weird from that. And it's not like, oh man, he doesn't look good. Like, he was playing well. There were a couple of clips I honestly could have posted of Jordan Davis. I thought he looked fine. I know they said that it was talking about like flow of the game, and then the Giants got away from running the ball. Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of weird from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see Jordan Davis play in 4-man fronts, basically, because it seems like they're only going to use him in these 5-man fronts. And Nick Sirianni said yesterday, we spoke to Sirianni after the show. Sirianni said they think Davis can play. They still think Davis can play in that role, but Moro Ojima, that's how they'd like to use him right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to say, like, all right, if they're going to play, it's a pure pass rush down, and who do you want on the field? You have Jalen Carter certainly at one spot. It's Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Moro Ojima. Like, who has shown the most? Like, I don't know if it's Milton or Ojima,
right,
but Jordan Davis is 3 on that list.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the defense and then move to the offense in just a minute. Bet365, baby, our presenting sponsors, and you know that it's never ordinary with Bet365. They've got over 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. It's never ordinary at Bet365. We've got Thursday night football coming up, the World Series. They've always got these special deals, these single-game parlay stuff going on for all of those tentpole events as the week goes on. Bet365 will hook you up with all kinds of boosts and other good stuff. And check out the custom PHLY boosts that Jamie Lynch puts together. Made everybody a little bit of money on Sunday. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
I would say that since I started working professionally in sports, that has been the number one thing that has changed most, has been the ease with which we have access to like sports betting and making those kind of wagers on games, especially the in-game betting that you referenced. But one thing that has not changed over that time. The great taste of Miller Lite. Let me tell you another thing that has not changed over that time. Miller Lite, it's less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? It's one of the classic debates that people have all over the country, the people who are not afraid of debating, that is. Miller Lite sparked that debate way back in 1975, and it still has not yet been settled. When you're look, I'm 38 years old, and so I've been drinking Miller Lite for a long time. We're not going to get into how long exactly I've been drinking Miller Lite, but for a long time. I can remember like specific sporting events, specific games. Zach, hearing you talk about, talking about the book release and about like your memories of watching games growing up. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's, for me, like I think of, I remember watching that Eagles game and having a nice Miller Lite. I remember watching this Flyers game or this Sixers game and enjoying a Miller Lite. You think of weddings and celebrations and parties and all that stuff. And why do I love Miller Lite so much? Well, obviously it's the great taste. It's crisp. It's refreshing. It always hits the spot, and it's less filling. I don't feel terrible when I've got more than 1 or 2 Miller Lites. We know those beers that make you feel that way. Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories, a light beer that tastes like light beer. Miller Lite, the original light beer since 1975. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLYBirds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
The guy's unbelievable at a promo.
I mean, let's not go.
Fantastic.
Let's not get nuts.
The film, the show, the promos. It's awesome.
Do we want to stay positive for the moment?
Let's stay
and
positive.
talk about the rest of the offense?
Yeah, let's stay positive.
And then at the end, we'll get a little bit negative.
Yeah,
Let's
not
reframe
negative,
it.
it's real.
Yeah, let's reframe it. It's not positive or negative. It's fair or unfair. Right?
I agree.
And so I think when you
right.
classify things as positive or no, it's fair or unfair.
Well, that's the thing. The whole thing is real. But
exactly.
The way that it can be perceived, you're absolutely right. Anytime we talk about Jalen Hurts, the comments are like,
it's unbelievable.
They're so mean to Jalen Hurts. Stop blaming Jalen Hurts. And then the other half are like, Jalen Hurts is the worst quarterback in the world I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Very polarizing.
Yeah, as Joe Mazzulla would say, that he's not going to let your words have power over him. And 40 years from now, you won't be invited to his funeral. So.
I pulled into the NovaCare complex today for the press conferences, and I happened to pull in directly next to Zach. And he looked over at me and a big smile on his face. Like, oh, what's the joke that I'm not in on here? We get out, and I say, what was the smile for? He's like, he's just watching Joe Mazzulla videos.
I thought you got another LinkedIn email.
I mean, this is a big week for speakers. I went 3 speakers this week. It's awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How did last night go?
Neil Kayal last night.
Yeah.
Awesome. Learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of notes that I wrote down when I got home, and just some more stuff I need to read. But learned so much about the Supreme Court.
He stood by his endorsements of those last 2 appointees. Last 3, I think.
He spoke about the sanctity of the court. Yeah, we spoke a lot about that.
Kavanaugh's a good guy. Gorsuch is smart. Yeah.
That actually didn't come up.
That didn't come up. Okay.
Yeah.
Who else is the rest of the week?
Larry David tonight.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
That's
gonna be awesome.
That's a speaking thing, not a performance.
No, speaking.
Okay.
A conversation with Larry David.
Okay.
And how envious I am. I wish I could be in conversation with him.
He's coming to the Met
tonight.
Yeah. Oh, it's tonight.
Yeah, that's where I'll be at the Met.
Oh,
Is it Larry David or David Larry?
It's Larry David. And then
who's having the conversation?
Who's he with?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know. It just says a conversation with Larry David.
Okay.
It's not me, unfortunately, but I will be listening to the conversation. Very excited for that. And then Thursday night, Malcolm Gladwell.
Wow.
Yes.
That was the email.
No, that was a different thing.
Email.
That was a LinkedIn promotion. This is something I had already signed up for from the Philadelphia Library.
Got it.
Yeah. Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, what a streak.
I know. This is awesome this week. Yes. This is awesome.
If you could host the Larry David conversation, what would be your bang question?
What keeps you up at night? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You learn a lot. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you want to tailor the questions towards the person, not just ask the same blanket question to everybody. But that's okay.
Yeah, like I would say it's what's it take to be like, what you do is so subjective, right? Humor is so subjective. How do you know that something's going to hit?
Okay.
You don't like that question either. Wow. What would you ask Larry David? What would you ask Larry David?
I don't know. I'm not the one who wants to host the show.
I just told you some questions I would ask. You didn't find them satisfactory.
It's okay.
Do you want to be party to that conversation?
It depends.
Okay. All right. Well,
I would absolutely watch a conversation between you and Larry David. Absolutely.
1,000%.
Thank you. You know what I would not
pay a lot
ask
of
him?
money for that.
You know what I would not ask him?
Arnold Palmer's dong?
If he pees sitting down.
I would not ask him either of those questions. Because the second one he already answered in a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. Yeah. The first one I wouldn't have interest in that. Okay. I wouldn't ask him if it's Larry David or David Larry. I would know his name.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else from a Vic Fangio game running standpoint that was interesting to you? That they were so zone heavy and barely blitzed.
That could have been game plan specific.
Okay.
The big thing was that they found ways to pressure Daniel Jones, and that was something that we talked about last week is a must for that game.
We will get into the Bengals specifically on Thursday, but you feel generally better about their ability to handle a good offense now than you did 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Giants certainly aren't like world beaters offensively, but they had proven over the course of this season that they were, a solid, like mediocre offense when you look at all the numbers and all the metrics. So, while I'm not like, to me, I look at Sunday as a good litmus test for how far this defense has come in the last 2-3 weeks.
Okay, let's talk about the offense and specifically the running game. what jumped out to you about the diversity of the running game and the different ways that they were able to deploy Saquon Barkley?
The big thing was just continuing to find space for him to work. We talk about like the yards before contact and, just the ability to really, leverage his skill set. And that's something the Eagles have long been able to do. We talked about the DeAndre Swift last year. He was number 1 in yards before contact and number 32 in yards after contact. The thought with Saquon is now he can create yards on his own, and that's what we talked about in the postgame show was the yards over expected from Next Gen Stats and how he's one of the best in the league right now in doing that. And so I think that whether it was running inside, outside, zone schemes, gap schemes, finding ways to be able to get him up to the second level with a head of steam, that was a very fruitful exercise for them in this football game.
Sorry, I thought you were going to ask something. For the guys up front,
yes,
and the different run schemes that they were using. We can get to the Ben Van Sumer and the couple plays there, but with Tyler Steen in there and Fred Johnson in there, how did those guys hold up?
Pretty well. I think overall, this was a you talk about like the run game and like the attrition and wearing the opponent down. They people say like body blows, like that's this was a game that you could point to in that way because the double teams against Dexter Lawrence and the guys inside for the Giants were not as effective in the first quarter, the first few drives. You start to see like right before halftime, right after halftime, and then certainly throughout the rest of the second half, those double teams were getting more movement. And it was on Lawrence and then certainly on some of those other guys up front. And when you look at some of those runs from both Kenny Gainwell and Saquon Barkley in the second half, a lot of that was movement from double teams at the point of attack. Sometimes it's Tyler Steen and Lane Johnson. You saw Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson on some of them. So those double teams really started to wear them down. And that's where we saw some of those big plays happen for Saquon Barkley.
So we spoken ever since the Saquon Barkley signing about the benefit of being here. Saquon's obviously an exceptional player. He's run for a lot of yards outside of this offense. What specifically did you see in this game that you say that's the benefit of being in Philadelphia?
I think just the fact that I haven't looked at the numbers in terms of like where this ranks from like his whole career, but with the Giants, I mean, he was constantly getting hit at or near the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, and here in Philly, like that does not happen. And this was a great case where on all those big runs and even some of like the 12 and 14 yard runs that we've seen from him, he's not touched until he gets to the second level, when he gets to the linebacker level. And with a guy that is that explosive and that strong and that powerful, if you get him up there, it's like the Derrick Henry thing. You get him up there with a head of steam, like you're not getting him down. The safety is not going to get him down. He melted Dane Belton on the sideline on that first play. Once he gets going, he's just tough to get to the ground.
Am I able to ask
that's a good one.
I know. I was trying to figure out a way to use that, and I haven't been able to do it yet.
A league question real quick, and I don't know if today's the time to have this conversation, but it's fresh in my mind now that you say it. When you saw the success Saquon Barkley's had, and you've seen the success that Derrick Henry has had, do you think it's going to change the way teams view free agent running backs going forward?
Yeah, and I think Josh Jacobs has looked good in Green Bay too. This was known going into the summer or to the spring that this was a good class of free agent running backs. I don't think that'll happen every single year, but yeah, I think it's going to lead to some really interesting conversations.
But like the notion that a running back is 4 years and then don't give the running back the second contract, and that's kind of been what some teams have said. Have him on the rookie deal, let someone else pay him on the second deal. And I know in Derrick Henry's case, it's not even the second deal; it's the third deal. But
James Conner.
Yeah, but it just makes you think that because I see our friend Ross Tucker, he's been tweeting out how the percentage of Saquon's contract relative to some of the wide receivers. This is a point that I think the Eagles kind of thought behind the scenes was you're paying Darnell Mooney Saquon Barkley money. Would you rather have Saquon Barkley or Darnell Mooney? And then actually Mooney's been pretty good this year. But I do wonder.
Gabe Davis would be a big one.
Yeah. I do wonder if this is going to change the way teams view running backs.
Yeah, I think that's going to be that. And honestly, like the way that it's planned out, I do think that running backs will start to get a little bit more just based off this season. But I do think it'll be case by case. I don't think every running back that hits the market now is going to make that money. But yeah, I think it's going to lead to some more interesting conversations.
Or they can just draft Ashton Gianti, and you can read about him in Fran's first
He's
college.
Awesome.
His
awesome.
first look ahead.
Yeah. He's a guy even I know.
He's going to be top 15. Like he's that kind of player.
I think it's a little bit. I think teams might get in trouble if they're trying to have Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry like success. I think it's about valuation.
Yeah, I do. I think it's more. It goes hand in hand with just the return of the run game because that's been such a topic this year. I think those two things kind of go hand in hand.
But the mismanagement, again, I don't mean to deviate this. The mismanagement of the New York Giants, when you see what Xavier McKinney's doing, you see what Saquon Barkley's doing, you have two players like this who you let leave the building. If nothing else, trade them last year. The trade deadline's coming up next week. You're seeing teams, they're either in or they're out. The Giants were out last week. Last season at this time. They held on to Saquon and Xavier McKinney, thinking maybe there's a chance they could keep both of them, or the comp pick thing. It just, they mismanaged that in a big way.
And it'd be one thing if we were just, wish it could have been a fly on the wall in those meetings. We literally got to be the fly on the wall in those meetings to see how that went.
Yeah, not the brightest.
No.
That's okay. Pretty good news for Eagles fans. I want to check in on Lane Johnson.
Okay.
Is he still playing like the best tackle in football?
I mean,
just unbelievable.
Best tackle in football is probably strong.
That level.
Yeah, he's playing like a good tackle. I mean, a really good tackle. He's a great player. He's still really good.
Okay, awesome. Let's take one more break, and then we'll talk about the passing game and what's going on with the quarterback. Pardon me a minute. Tell you about our friends at Shady Rays. I'm wearing them. I'm a customer. I love my Shady Rays. Shady Rays gets you ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. And our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. And they've got the best customer service in the game. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. That's what these are. Fantastic. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out our best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
I don't have a prop for this
I would love to see that.
Company here.
I'd love to see that.
I do want to tell you that you always hear how important first impressions are. What about lasting impressions, right? That's what really matters. And that's where Blue Chew comes in, because Blue Chew helps boost your confidence in the bedroom so you can stay hard. Stop laughing and perform at your very best. And I don't mean to laugh because this is a real thing. Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost in a chewable form. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to you. The best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations like Bo looking at me right now as I'm reading this, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy, right? You don't have to worry about any of that. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Does it work? Do you think you need it? Try it for 1 month and find out. You're going to love it, and your partner is going to love it too. You could be missing out on the best sex of your life. And with Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman because
you got it.
Think about what Larry David would do.
Because when your package arrived, your package has arrived. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code ALLCITY at checkout. Just pay $5 for shipping. That's BlueChew.com, the promo code ALLCITY to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. When we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. And I apologize to Blue Chew for laughing there. It's serious, and make sure you check that out.
If you could have had a prop, what prop would it have been?
I would have actually I would have held the Blue Chews. The
Blue Chew tablets.
Yeah, the Blue Chew tablets. Yeah, I would have shown you that prop. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Put your boners away. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts. And this conversation is it's a bit of a temperature check, you might say, Fran. So let's take a look at which Eagle is heating up or cooling off with our Ace Hardware temperature check. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. You made the case, Fran, on allphly.com. This is very reasoned. This is calling it like you see it. There's a fair argument that this was, despite the lack of turnovers, Jalen Hurts' worst performance of the season. Explain why.
So let me just add an additional precursor.
Yes.
Because, again, it's like we talked about.
We're being very rational here.
Yes. It is. This is not he's a bad player. This is not that he's not worth the contract. The Eagles can't win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. Like, it's not
Nakobe Dean's allowed to have good games and bad games. Jalen Hurts is allowed to have good games and bad games.
I was thinking about this driving in. Like, people don't make as big of a deal if Myles Garrett has one pressure in a game, right?
Sure.
But that is the nature of playing the quarterback position. Is that you are under the spotlight, you are under the scrutiny. It is what it is. To me, in this game, and I was on this show a few weeks ago, and after he threw interception, say, hey, that's to me, Jalen played a better game than what people are saying. In this game, despite not throwing interceptions and not putting the ball on the ground, I just didn't think he played all that well. And over the last 2 weeks, I don't think he's played all that great. We can go throw by throw, drop back by drop back if we want, but it was, I didn't think it was a great performance.
And this is not accuracy.
No.
This is more about structurally both the protections that he has to be graded on because he is the one taking on that responsibility this year, setting those protections. And we keep bringing up the Jason Kelce conversation. Even when you're wrong, you're right. There were a couple times in this game where he was wrong and he was wrong.
Yeah,
right?
And at least it's the continued where you kind of look and you could see the frustration on film with guys, and so not everyone is on the same page and agreeing with what they're doing, or at least again reading body language.
Right.
That's how it seems to me, just kind of watching through the film. And I do have specific examples I wanted to hit on. I don't know if you wanted to go theme by theme, or do you want to go sequentially?
Let's talk about the sacks.
Okay.
And generally the pressure, because some of them didn't turn out to be sacks, but they were big pressures. And I texted you last night. I was going through the offense, and I get to the third or fourth play of the game, which is the first sack, and it's just oh man, what are we getting in for here? And explain what happens on that play.
So the Eagles, it was 2nd and 9, so it's the third play of the game. And the Eagles, they come out in a 2-by-2 set, and you're running a quick game concept to the left, and you're running a quick game concept to the right. And these are the things, stop me if you've heard this before in the chat, but we've talked about this a lot, all season long, about the issues that have cropped up when they line up this way and Jalen just has to drop back and kind of read the coverage. Because typically what happens when you were running a quick game concept to the left and a quick game concept to the right, if you're the quarterback, if you don't like that first read, then by the time you get back over to the other side, the other reads those routes are done because everybody else is running 3-step timing concepts. And so if you're reading the first one out and the ball doesn't come out, then now you get into scramble drill mode.
And it's typically designed that one side is for zone, one side is for man,
or one high versus two high,
right.
or whatever that is. And so it's up to the quarterback to say, okay, this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to start on the right side, and then I'm not even going to worry about the left side.
And not only does he not pull a trigger on this one, he sort of starts bailing the pocket very early when there's not that much pressure.
Well, yeah, to me that popped up a couple times in this game. But yeah, he starts to the left and he had Grant Calcaterra running to the flat, and it was open, it was there,
right.
And that should have been where the ball came out, didn't come out. So
it would have been like a 4-yard gain,
right? So
right? It's not right. It's not like he missed a touchdown,
right? But he goes back to the right, and instantly he's like, all right, guys, scramble drill. He's you see him pointing at Saquon Barkley. You say, go, go, go. But I think that's the problem with some of these plays is that he drops back and the timing is all, and now right off the bat, it's all right, we're in fire drill mode. And he runs into a sack. He runs to his right, comes back against the grain and runs into a sack. So that was the first one. But there were five total sacks in this game, four total sacks. 2 of them I would put squarely on Hurts.
And this goes to the thing that you've talked about, Zach, which is, is this offense over reliant on the big play? And I think it's tough because you want them to have the big play, and you can't just if Saquon Barkley runs for 55 yards, you can't ding him for that, right? But structurally, is that a thing that you see from Jalen Hurts, that sometimes he's not willing to just take the 4-yarder? He wants to extend in search of the big play, and sometimes that can get them in negative situations.
That was honestly the spin, if you wanted to look at it optimistically, to the no turnovers, no interceptions thing in the summer in training camp. That was what I think the biggest takeaway was. And honestly, we have seen a little bit of that. It's his average depth of target this year is lower than it's been. His percentage of throws short of the sticks is lower than it's been. I think he has shown more of a propensity to kind of take what the defense is giving him. We've certainly seen that against the blitz this year. His ADOT against pressure and against the blitz has been lower than it really has ever been. So I think we're seeing layers of that. And again, kind of going back big picture, all quarterbacks go through these kind of peaks and valleys, right? All the best quarterbacks have these moments. And it's just funny, like when I posted this yesterday, and all these people in my mentions that like don't follow me or have like 53 followers, and are like, oh, like all quarterbacks go through this, and everyone's just looking for something to complain with Hurts. Like, it's not that big of it's okay to say he didn't have a good game in this one against the Giants from that standpoint.
So you're driving home today. You get a call on your phone. It's an unknown number from Prosser, Washington, and you pick it up, and it's Kellen Moore, and he says, I'm sorry I don't work with you anymore, but I've been seeing your stuff, and this is like incredible. This is the most informed I've ever seen from a media member before, and I'm trying to figure this out because look, I'm tasked with trying to get the Jalen to be the best version of himself. We had training camp, we've had 6 weeks, and it's not clicking. What should I do? How do I fix this? What's your recommendation to him?
To me, the first question that I would have would be the increase in more full field, like pure progression plays. So you think back the touchdown to Saquon Barkley in week 1 against Green Bay, where you had, instead of it being, two receivers one way, it was more, all right, I'm going to work to Saquon, to Dallas, and his eyes start left, and he's working across the field. If Saquon's not open, then I'm going to go to Dallas. If Dallas isn't open, then I'm going to go to Devontae. If Devontae's not open, and you're seeing that used to be a very college way. That was like the Mike Leach like air raid style of progression reading for a quarterback. And people would always say, "Oh, that doesn't work in the NFL because you have to be able to read coverage." You're starting to see more of that go through the NFL. I feel like if you look at even like the Detroit Lions offense, there are elements of these certain plays that they run where it's, again, that pure progression style for Jared Goff, and that's the way that he played in college, honestly, was, all right, I'm going to go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Everybody kind of has a role and is an effective option on any given drop back. But the thing is that some coaches may look at that and say that is more difficult than just running curl flat and slant flat over to the other side, right? Like that. So that's what we don't know is how do they feel about those kind of concepts? How does Jalen feel about those kind of concepts? Or is that harder for him? Or is the only way to simplify it, hey, we're just going to go screen game and RPO, and it becomes more of like the 2021 version of the offense where then it's literally like, all right, like this is the throw. It's one read and the ball is out. That's the question we don't have the ability to answer.
Well, I do know Jalen has great reverence for Lincoln Riley's offense, right? I mean, he thrived in that offense, and we also know the Eagles interviewed Cliff Kingsbury to be their OC this past year. So maybe that is an offensive style that is a philosophy or an approach that fits Jalen Hurts.
That's a good point.
Further into the specifics of those pressures and those sacks, give us a couple other big ones, and maybe specifically on the protections as well.
Yeah, so we'll go to the second sack, and this was it was 3rd and 10. I believe this was the second possession of the game. This was the Dexter Lawrence, the first Dexter Lawrence sack. No, this was the Brian Burns sack. Excuse me. So this one you would just look at, and I think if you look at it, you say, okay, like their guys won up front. All right, Dexter Lawrence pushed the pocket. We talked last week about how the Giants are really good at dictating their fronts. If they want to get a one-on-one, they can do it. This was a great example of that, where they line up 3 defensive linemen to Cam Jurgens' left. And so that basically says, okay, we're going to have one-on-ones across the board. Fred Johnson's one-on-one with Brian Burns. Landon Dickerson's one-on-one with the second defensive tackle. It might have been Elijah Chapman. And then Cam Jurgens is one-on-one with Dexter Lawrence. To keep Landon Dickerson, or to keep Mekhi Becton from coming over, we're going to put a linebacker over Mekhi Becton. So now he has to block. That's the way that they want. Mekhi Becton's got to block the linebacker, and then Lane Johnson's one-on-one with the defensive end. So it's 5 versus 5. Now, the Eagles kept Saquon Barkley into block. So there's 2 ways that you can go about that if you're the Eagles, if you're an offensive line. You can either say, okay, Saquon Barkley, you're going to help maybe chip Brian Burns. You are going to block the linebacker that's standing over the right guard,
so that he can double Dexter Lawrence,
so that he can slide over to Dexter Lawrence. Or Option C is what the Eagles did do in this situation, which is Saquon Barkley is going to release up into the middle of the defense, and he is going to help out Cam Jurgens with Dexter Lawrence. So he's throwing a shoulder into Dexter Lawrence. It's not like how he was releasing out. He stayed in the block and was helping. To me, I look at that and say, you're probably better served just keeping Saquon Barkley on Bobby Okereke. Mm-hmm. He takes on the linebacker. Let's have Mekhi Becton in his 350-pound frame. Let's get him over to help out Cam Jurgens on Dexter Lawrence. And so the Eagles didn't do that. And so the one-on-ones, Dexter Lawrence, I mean, he pushes Cam Jurgens back into the pocket. Jalen Hurts has no ability to stand up. Brian Burns turns the corner, and he ends up getting the sack. That's the one where Jalen Hurts ends up sliding in the pocket. He just said, all right, white flag, I'm going down, which is good. But to me, that was a protection thing that probably could have been avoided.
And that one is specifically interesting to me in the context of the description that Jason Kelce has given about the way that they went about trying to block Aaron Donald over the years, which is that we are going to double him on every single play. We're not going to beat him, and if it means that we have a running back one-on-one with the defensive end, that's fine. We don't want him to beat us. And so it seems like that is a specifically a Hurts decision and not necessarily the way that the offensive line would be structured, because I believe that they put Dexter Lawrence on that sort of game plan wrecking level.
And Dexter Lawrence had a sack later in the game. It was like a third quarter, I think, where Dexter he got the sack. It was for -8 yards. And Landon Dickerson, it was basically they had Lawrence on Steen that time. So Lawrence is on the other side. It's Dickerson who's on the linebacker on Okereke, and Okereke doesn't even rush. He just stands there and basically holds Landon Dickerson up. And Dickerson, you can tell, he turns around after the sack and he just looks up into the sky, and you can just read the body language. You're like, he's annoyed by how this happened, and obviously he's pissed because they gave up a third down sack.
Right.
But also, I'm sure there's probably some frustration there in terms of I could have helped Cam. I could have helped Tyler Seen on this situation, but instead I got wasted by the linebacker and Barkley. He just or it might have been Gainwell in that situation. Whoever the running back wasn't a part of the protection. Mm-hmm. So that would be the argument there in that case, in terms of everybody just not being on the same page, and that falls under Jalen Hurts' purview as being in charge of the protections now this year.
Speaking about third downs, and Jalen's involved in this. Bo knows I don't need blue chew when it comes to talking about third downs and red zone. I mean, that
really gets you going. Yep.
Yeah. So look, 1 of 13 was the worst of the Nick Sirianni era. The Eagles were 1 of 13. Now they were 0 for 3. In short red zone, as it's defined on True Media. And then they were 3 of 3 converting fourth downs on those, right? So as Kellen Moore said today, you make the third down call knowing you have 2 cracks at it. But third down, you're not going to survive in the NFL going 1 of 13 on third down, or even near that. What did you see on third down, and how do they fix it?
So real quick, we'll just go through a couple of these. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4. They had 8 dropbacks on third down. 3rd and 2, they threw a screen. Actually, no. Here we go. 3rd and 2. This was the mesh play to Devontae Smith. So I put this out.
Put this out on Twitter.
A different conversation. We'll save it for it. But an incompletion, a throwaway by Jalen Hurts. So he was reading it out and gets stuck. Ends up not throwing it. 3rd and 5, he threw the back shoulder. It looked like Jalen Hurts changed the play at the line of scrimmage and threw a goal ball outside the numbers on 3rd and 5 to Jahan Dotson, and it's incomplete. The problems we talked about last week in terms of low probability throws in the offense, good example of that. 3rd and 7, that's a scramble fight by Jalen Hurts. This was their only conversion of the day. So it's 3rd and 7.
This is to the topic.
Yeah. Yes, so it's 3rd and 7. They have a blitz call on the New York Giants, so they're blitzing, and for one of the first times this year, free rusher. So there was a blown protection from that standpoint. It looked like everybody it should have been a slide one way, and it should have been Kenny Gainwell on the blitzing linebacker. I believe it was Fox that came in clean, and nobody went to the linebacker. It probably should have been Gainwell, but also, the offensive line that was sliding, that was going that way, they weren't sliding full either. So it was communications on both sides. And again, that goes to Jalen Hurts in terms of everybody's not on the same page on this protection call. So, he made a great play on that, but they honestly should have been 0 for on third down, because that's a play that you don't expect that he's going to make every single time.
Well, and this is part of the, we can criticize or call it as we see the protection stuff. But at the same time, in that very specific situation, and there's probably 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the entire league who would get a first down on that play. So he does deserve credit for that. That's an unbelievable athletic play.
Yeah, and to like the playing for fourth down thing. I mean, they got sacked 3 times on third down, so they weren't playing for fourth down on those. And then,
but those were third and medium, third and long. I'm saying the third and short.
The third and short. So we went through the third and short. So 3rd and 10 they got sacked. 3rd and 10 they got sacked. 3rd and 11 they got sacked. 3rd and 14, which was the first one of the day. That's where he threw the check down and Barkley ran over, melted Dane Belton.
Melted Belton.
Melted Belton.
All right. Anything else on the protection or pressure front that's worth getting?
No, I think that's the big one. We covered the 2 aspects of it. Is that the blitz pickup wasn't outside, and they didn't blitz a ton in this game, New York, but we saw that one come through clean. And then I mentioned, I think there are just times where Hurts invites his own pressure, and then there was the ones where like the protection call. You could argue, and that might be picking nits, but you could argue the protection call could have been better.
All right, now let's get to some of the structural parts of the offense and a good super chat question from, I believe, Claude. Claude who says, just watching live, I find it perplexing that how the run game design can look so varied and creative, and the pass game looks like 2015 Chip Kelly. Do you agree that the passing game structure is a little bit basic?
Well, I mean, it certainly was in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he had 21 dropbacks in the day. I'm not going to go through every single one. We've already gone through a bunch. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it was 3 screens. So he had 21 dropbacks, 4 sacks, 3 screens, 3 play action completions, Bo. So one of the ones on the first play, under center play action.
What are the odds, by the way, that the first target this week is to Devontae Smith? 95%.
Yeah, favorable, yeah. I mean, if I wanted to pick a swooper that has a good chance of hitting, that's a good one to go with.
By the way, very funny. I was looking at this today. You tried to have 3 gettable swoopers, and you still only had one winning submission.
I mean, the first quarter scoring is just like ridiculous.
That's very funny.
But 2 go balls outside the numbers. 1 hit to A.J. Brown. 1 did not to Jahan Dotson. It was a very like simple, diluted game plan here this week from a pass game standpoint. And we could talk about it became a running game, and they didn't have to throw that much. That's fair, but I'm just going off the sample size we saw, and at the end of the day, like he wasn't very good in that limited sample size.
Now, do you think? And we will get to. We have 3 other super chats that we will get to. Well, we're going to extend the show a little bit today. Do you think? Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I love that.
Okay. Do you think that the basicness in this game is a result of the way that they have seen Jalen been playing through the first 5 games, and this is what is good for the offense right now, or is it just it's 1 week? Let's see how it goes moving forward.
That's a good question. I go back and forth on it because you don't know, right? Obviously, so but I'd point to last week too and say that they were. We talked about it was a very conservative game plan against the Browns. Now in that game, you're worried about Myles Garrett and that pass rush. This one, you're worried about the blitzing and Dexter Lawrence. And so maybe they just said, hey, we don't love our matchup and pass protection in both of these games, and so we're going to dial it back. Maybe coming out of the bye, they said we want to be more of a running game, a running focused team. I guess we just have to see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks and see. Like against Cincinnati, you would think they don't. Trey Hendrickson's a really good player, but they don't have the horses that you would compare to New York or to Cleveland up front. And so if they continue to play that way, I think that'll be more telling.
Very quickly before we talk about some of the throws that Jalen did not make, since you talk about Myles Garrett, a super chat from Fresh Prince who asks, "It's early, but would you prefer Max Crosby or Myles Garrett?" He says, "I know ZB prefers Myles. What would you be willing to trade for each of them?"
I mean, both guys would go, I would imagine, for 2 1s. I mean, Myles Garrett might even be for 3. Yeah.
I mean, I would rather have Myles Garrett.
He's the best defensive player in football.
Yeah. I mean, they're not.
You disagree with your boy.
With Saquon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree with him. I think Myles Garrett's the best defensive player in football.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. They're not. I think there's more of a chance of Crosby. I could see Crosby getting traded more, but I actually don't. I don't think that either guy gets dealt at the end of the day.
I love Myles Garrett coming out, by the way.
No doubt. We believe that for sure.
What was his nickname in college? The Kevin Summerlin game. Do you remember?
Oh, good question. I don't.
I figured you'd.
Jason Garrett.
No, I just called him Batman because he showed up as a 17-year-old with a full 6-pack shredded Batman suit.
I know the feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Julia, you're not supposed to laugh at that.
Why is that funny, Julia?
Come on. Okay.
It's like Zach with a six-pack. No.
Maybe Miller Lite.
It's like, come on, let's have a more realistic joke than that. Yes.
You put out a video on Twitter. It's in the story. The two mesh plays where Jalen turns down what looks like the right throw. Devontae Smith coming across on the third down that precedes the touchdown to AJ Brown, and then throws it away. And then later in the red zone, doesn't get it to Saquon Barkley on the wheel. That looks like it could have been a touchdown. Were there other examples of Jalen passing up open throws in this game? And if not, maybe tell us about those specific examples.
No, because honestly, threw 14
right?
passes, and as you mentioned, there was like 3 screens, 3 play action throws. Like those kind of throws were few and far between in terms of him just being asked to read things out. Here's how I explain Jalen has actually mentioned a few times this year, like, oh, that was an alert.
Yes.
So for me, let me just define for the viewers and for the listeners an alert. So the best. Exactly like that. So that's what he hears in his head. Is
that your whale sound? Or your dolphin sound?
The
Aaron Rodgers dolphin sound?
No, that's much different.
Oh, okay.
That was not a great alarm sound, but
it was all right. You've had
a whale sound is also much
Are
different.
you an alarm guy in the morning?
No.
Good.
I have a daughter.
Oh. Are you an alarm person?
Yes. 5:45.
Good. I respect that. Yeah.
I feel like a Berman.
Make sure you become a diehard.
Yes.
Introductory deal. All that stuff.
The video, the article for the diehards has a elongated version of that mesh concept video. So the one I put out on Twitter, look, I had to get it in under 2 minutes and 10 seconds per Elon's rules. So that's limited in terms of span. But if you go over to the article, that one's like 4.5 to 5 minutes, and it includes other times in history that because the Eagles have been running this mesh play.
Great context, yes.
Yeah, the Eagles have been running this play for over 10 years now. Like
always love seeing a Sproles. Yes, always love seeing Sproles.
Like LaShawn McCoy, Bryce Brown, Darren Sproles, Chris Polk. Throw your Eagles running back in there. We've seen them catch these wheel routes. Yeah. Kenyon Barner. I know Kenyon Barner. There was a game against the Texans. I remember Barner catching some of these wheel routes on these mesh plays. So basically, an alert is
he's going to keep naming running backs. I know this bit. So while you're talking, he's just going to keep throwing running backs at you.
I look forward to hearing a couple of them. But to me, when you're looking at an alert, that is just because on every play, the quarterback has a read. All right, first read, second read, third read. An alert bypasses those reads. So the best example I would give would be, you could think back to like the times before RPOs were like common nomenclature with football zeitgeist, where it was like, okay, it's a run play, but if you see that the corner is 8 yards off over to the left, we're just going to throw the ball to that receiver. That's an alert, right? So it's the same
like
idea.
Corey Clement.
Yes, exactly.
Eldra Buckley.
Eldra Buckley, Tatum Bell. No, not Tatum Bell. No, not Tatum Bell. Who's the wasn't there a Bell? Joik Bell. Yeah.
Joik Bell.
Joik Bell. Yes, Tatum Bell was the Broncos.
I think Joik might have been pre-chip though.
Yeah,
he was. He was Andy.
He was Andy. Okay.
Can you name every chip running back? Actually, we don't have to do that. Let's proceed with your
Dion Lewis, which will get us to a super chat later. But
there we go.
I know that reference.
Basically, the wheel on those mesh plays is the alert. So if you like the matchup, if you see, hey, you know what, we think it's going to be man-to-man coverage, and the linebacker is going to be on the running back, and the running back is releasing to the left, and that linebacker who's covering him, he's going to have to run through those shallow crosses. He's not going to be able to get there. I'm going to throw that. So Corey Clement in the Super Bowl, great example. They went for like 50-plus yards down the right sideline. The safety Jordan Richards took a terrible angle, and it was a big play. Nick Foles hit that very, very quickly. I think that's what Jalen Hurts wanted on the first version, that 3rd and 3, where Devontae Smith is wide open on the shallow cross. I think that he wanted Kenny Gainwell against Mike McFadden, the big white linebacker, number 41 for the Giants. And we said, like, that's the guy. That's because we talked about this in the show last week, Zach. That was the guy that he could attack in space.
You're fully Bo-pilled.
Yeah, that was a favorable matchup for them in space. And Jalen was like, yeah, like I want this.
Zach.
McFadden, he took a great angle and took the throw away. Jalen was just too slow to get off of that read. And so in the article pointed to a fact that, okay, here's an example where that read is taken away. The quarterback wanted the alert early. It got taken away because the coverage was better than expected. Now you have to get to that shallow cross fast. And a great example of that, go back to Super Bowl 52, that critical 4th and 1. Zach Ertz makes that catch over the middle. That's a perfect example of exactly that, where the quarterback, the wheel's taken away, that alert route is taken away, get to the shallow cross really, really fast. So Jalen just got held up there. On the second one that everybody saw on the broadcast where Saquon Barkley's running the wheel route, I don't know if Jalen necessarily thought that it was going to be a different coverage, and they ended up playing zone, and so it was the cornerback that was going to be out there in the flats guarding Barkley. Regardless, Barkley was wide open, so I don't know if Jalen just got held up. They actually guarded the mesh concept very, very well. So really the only throw there was Barkley. So I couldn't tell you if Jalen saw the alert late, and so then he didn't throw it. Maybe he's looking at Devontae, and then it got messed up, and then he didn't go there. But it looked like his eyes were looking at Barkley, and the throw just wouldn't have been different. It would have been a different throw to Barkley. It would have been more of like a flat throw with a little bit of velocity, throwing him away from and it should have been a touchdown. And people will say like, oh, those two plays, quarterbacks miss plays all the time. Yes, but when you only have 14 attempts, and these are the two drop back passes, like that, it's that small sample, especially in the high leverage. It was high leverage 3rd and 3, and then another one on the goal line. Yeah. Like those plays get magnified.
The first one is especially confusing to look at because it's like the progression rates you were talking about. Like it's in the same cone of vision.
Yes.
Right? Like if you're looking at Gainwell on that one, and it's not there, like. Just right in front of you.
That's the beauty of it. We would say that when Chip Kelly first bought it to Philadelphia, there were so many examples of that where you could see like whether it was Vic or Nick Foles, or you could just see their eyes go bang, 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 bang. It's the pure progression that we were talking about earlier. It's very natural for his eyes to be able to go, and he just took too long getting off that read.
So there were only 14 passes in the game, so we're making a lot out of these few examples, but in general,
but not 14 dropbacks, and I think that's important because the sacks are on him in some of the cases.
Yeah. Exactly right.
And I mean, the only scramble there was, but the only scramble, like he had that long scramble on the 3rd down that we talked about, and then he had 2 other scrambles for 5 yards. Like so, it's not like he also got pressured and he created some big plays. Like that wasn't in this game. We saw it on the one drop back.
So in the prism of, oh man, this is concerning. Like maybe they need to tilt all the way to making this a run-first offense, or like this is just one blip of a game for a top 10 quarterback or however you want to define him.
Yep.
Which side do you lean more towards?
I mean, I would say that they've been a run-first offense for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. So I would say they'll probably stay status quo for now. I think it goes back to my precursor at the beginning of the discussion. I don't watch this game and say, oh, they're never going to win with Jalen Hurts. Like, they got to cut him. They got to move on. They got to draft another quarterback. I think he didn't have a good game, and so now it's how do we get him back on track? How do we get it? How do we build early completions and all the things that we've talked about? It's not like he's been playing this poorly throughout. I think certainly this game, and I would say even like last week against Cleveland wasn't an ideal game for him. So we've seen him play better here this season.
Well, you've seen him, and you have seen him play amazing,
no doubt,
and run the offense in really exceptional ways. So I guess if we're trying to just guess about what's going on here, and this is not what the film is telling you, this is just conjecture. Do you wonder if the mental load of having to do the protections and stuff is taking some kind of toll?
Potentially, it could potentially be. And it's tough for us to answer. Of course, it's all conjecture. There's so many things that it could be, and that's why, to me, like I just go on. This is what the film is showing. And you know me, like I am almost always like very pro quarterback in terms of when things go wrong, like I will give the quarterback the benefit of the doubt because it is the most difficult position in sports and what they're asked to do, all the different factors, even when they're wrong, they're right, all that stuff. In this game, I just felt like it was definitely substandard in terms of what we've come to expect from Jalen Hurts. I think that there's just whatever the issues are, like internally, they've just got to figure out how to massage and get around those things.
Okay. Let's get to a couple of the other super chats. Zach, got to ask you about from Jason, your thoughts. I'm going to ask Zach first on Joe Banner going out of his way to, for whatever reason, just try to crush Quinyon Mitchell on Twitter today.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where it was coming from. I mean, I respect
weird, huh?
I respect Joe quite a bit though, and I think and
serious person.
And Joe, as he mentioned on Twitter, he does talk to people, right? He's not on an island. He speaks to people in the league. So what was more interesting to me there is not as much that Joe's saying it, but that other people in the league are agreeing that Quinyon Mitchell has just been okay. I'm not a coach. I'm not a personnel executive. I have watched every snap the Eagles have played multiple times, and I think Quinyon Mitchell's been better than okay. But there's a lot that goes into an evaluation of a corner. I get that. Maybe I'm comparing it to what I've seen from Eagles corners in the past.
Yeah.
But I think Quinyon Mitchell has given them high level production this season.
Yeah, we're all in like group chats and we hear from friends and family. And I was in a group chat yesterday where someone said, "Oh, like, could Quinyon win Defensive Rookie of the Year?" I'm like, no, like let's yeah. So if we're talking like that from like an overhyped standpoint, like yes, then I would agree. But he's been good. Like sure. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased with what we've seen so far from Quinyon Mitchell. Like, yeah, would you like some of those plays to turn into interceptions? Like that's why he's not in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. But you have to be pleased, I think, with what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I think he's been pretty good, especially for a rookie. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did this come up? Like I haven't felt, I haven't felt the whole, like, so did he say it one time and then someone pushed back and then he wanted to establish. Look, I respect Joe Banner's opinion quite a bit. So if he's saying it, I'm not going to discredit it. But it's not consistent with what I've seen.
Okay. From CDP wants to know. He said Jared Goff has said the Rams traded to number 1 during Goff's Eagles visit.
Yep.
And Doug Peterson expressed deep sadness not having Goff. Did Doug ever truly love Wentz?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll defer to you, Bo, because you did a great story on the Eagles going up from 13 to 2. My sense was they never thought they were getting Wentz. Oh, I'm sorry, they never thought they were getting Goff. Yeah. That they kind of viewed it like the Rams trade was for Goff. The Rams were covering their bases and talking to both guys, so the Eagles the Eagles were looking at both. But I think when the Eagles made their trade, the 2, they were confident it was going to be Wentz.
I think that's right. Yeah. And Howie has always, even in that story, sort of sidestepped. They just wanted a quarterback, and they were happy with both of those guys. They didn't necessarily have a preference. I think their preference was Wentz. Yeah. But I think they if for whatever reason the Rams had taken Wentz, I think they would have taken Goff.
But by the way, the Rams traded Goff. They gave up a lot to get rid of him.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. That's one where was I wrong. Like in Detroit, Goff in Detroit. It's like this. Even 2 years ago, it's like this guy's not that good. And boy, have they built. It's a wonderful example of like building things around a guy, making his accentuating his strengths.
It's first a credit to Goff, but it's a credit to Ben Johnson too. And it does, from a big picture NFL perspective, I do think some of the success that, whether it's Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, I don't want to get ahead of myself with Sam Darnold, but Jared Goff, maybe teams are going to take more of a chance on like the second, third move quarterbacks as opposed to just giving $250 million to whoever your guy is. I wonder if that's something we'll start seeing more because there are teams that are kind of hamstrung by these big contracts. And good quarterback talent can sometimes be situational.
One thing that I'm a pretty big believer in, and honestly, this applies to the Jalen Hurts conversation. I think it applied to the Carson Wentz conversation a few years back. I think that, and we see it with quarterbacks over time, right? It takes a certain amount of time before you get to like grad school level with playing that position where you've seen all the defense, you've seen all the coverages, you've seen all the pressures, you know what to expect. You've built up your notebooks on every defensive coordinator in the league, and I think that it behooves you as an organization, as a coaching staff, as a personnel staff to get the quarterback to that point, like hold his hand to get him to whether that's year 7, year 8, year 9, whatever that is. And if you can get him there playing high-level football with that confidence, then that's where it starts to pay dividends. We're seeing that right now with Jared Goff, and I think you look around the league and you see those guys. By the time you get to that point, like Kirk Cousins, like what he did to picking the 49ers apart on Monday Night Football a couple years ago, and you see, like honestly, what he is able to do whenever he's healthy, like that's his superpower, is his understanding of defenses and pressures and just being able to beat people with his brain. All quarterbacks can get there. It's like Patrick Mahomes said, like it was year 2, year 3, and he didn't know like how to define cover 3 and define cover 4. I think that it's so important for teams to just find way, whatever that is, and it's got to be different for every quarterback. You have to get him there and do everything you can from a supporting cast standpoint, scheme standpoint, everything to get him to that point. It's up to you. You can't just it's not sink or swim at that position. Too much money gets invested. Like you have to protect your investment that way.
Zach, I've been meaning to ask you. We have not talked about on the show yet. How are the fish doing?
alive, well, swimming. Okay. Yeah. And my kids are feeding them. So I'll tell the story.
Yeah, let's tell the story.
I'll tell the story. So my wife, Emily, she's amazing. She promised the kids. She promised the kids fish. If the first month of school went well, so I was tasked with getting them fish. Like, it was a Saturday when I was free, and I was tasked with getting them fish. And so I call a
Wegmans.
I call a local store.
Market, yeah.
I call a local store. Local pets. A local pet store. It's actually a national pet store, but and I basically say, do you sell fish? Yes. Okay. Do you sell a fish bowl? And then they got a little hesitant on the phone, and they said, yeah. Well, they don't recommend the fish bowl. And I said, no, I'm not looking for anything fancy. I'm just looking for some fish. Fish bowl, like 2 fish, a fish bowl, and water, basically, right? And I have the water. Right?
Yeah, we know you have the water in your bottle. Yeah,
my sink's full. And so they asked me, what kind of fish? I said, just like goldfish, normal fish. And they don't, they're like asking me questions, and I don't know fish the way I know the Fab Five, right? And so the person says, I can't sell you the fish. And I said, what do you mean you can't sell me the fish? And they say, well, we have like ethical responsibilities to the fish. Like, we don't think you're ready to be a fish owner or something. I don't know if that's what they said verbatim. That was essentially that's what they insinuated. And I said, so if I didn't call you and I just showed up, would I have been able to get the fish? And they said, we recommend you go here, here, and here. Right. So I said, okay. So I told the kids, we're going to this other place, and I'm not going to call ahead of time. And so I walk in, and I say she was a very nice woman, and I say, and I had my kids with me, and my kids are, so cute, right? 7 and 5. It's like, and they're so excited. They've been talking about this for a month, and I say, I'm getting that. They were great in school this month. They're getting fish. Do you sell a fish? Do you sell a fish bowl? And they say, we don't recommend the fish bowl. And I said, what do you recommend? And they showed me, and I looked at the price tag, and I'm like, I'm not getting that. Can I get the fish bowl? and then so I'll give you the whole story here. And then they
give him a full Matumbo.
No.
So there's a tank right in front of me. There's these 2 fish called beta fish. All right, or there's a tank of there's beta fish in there. They're all not in a tank. They're
Those
in
are the ones that can eat each other.
They're in these little individual things. Okay.
Right.
And they're
put 2 beta fish together, one's going to eat the other one.
Well,
right?
I didn't know that. Okay. I was like, and they were pretty inexpensive, and I was like, I'll take 2 of these and a fish bowl. And they're like, no, you can't put them in the bowl together. And I was like, you can't put 2 fish in a bowl together? And they said, not beta fish.
One of them's got to be an alpha.
And I said, which fish can I put in the bowl together? And so she brought me over to a different section, which is good because these fish were actually less money than the beta fish. So that was good. But then I was like, I'll have 2 of these fish. And she's like, you are not. She's like, do you know anything about fish? And I said, no. They swim. And she's like, well, this fish can't go, or this fish grows to. It was like, this fish grows to like be that big. I was like, oh, I don't want that fish. I was like, what fish doesn't grow to be that big? She pointed me these 2 other fish. So I got that, and then I'm like, all right. And she's like, but you can't put these both in the fish bowl. I'm sorry, the story's taking so long.
No, please. I would like to do a whole episode.
The chat is loving this, by the way.
All right. So I said, all right, well, what's the most inexpensive tank you have? And so she says, this tank here, but she thinks this tank's too small. And I'm like, I'm not getting that tank over there, so I'll take this tank. And she said, okay, but she's like, but we can't sell you the fish today because the water has to be preconditioned. And I said, so you mean to tell me that we came here to the store and you're not going to sell me the fish? And she's like, well, you have to buy this water. I said, I have to buy water from you too. That's exactly what I said. And so I said, all right. So I said, they'll show me the water. She shows me the water, and I was like, $12 for water? I said, okay.
Is that what you paid for the Hawaiian?
What did you pay for the Hawaiian water?
2 for $3. Okay. So I got that, and she says you need other things in the fish tank. And my kids, they love hearing this, right? So they want the gravel, they want the different colors. And Sloan sees like the gravel that's like it's pink and green and all the blue and all the.
Charles in the chat says literally ran into the same thing at Petco a couple weeks ago. Who knew buying fish was so complicated?
Charles, you and I are kindred spirits here. I didn't want to mention the store, but yeah, they would not sell me fish. So different store would. So now we have to get the gravel. And then Sloan wants like the props or whatever and I get Sloan one, I have to get Reed one. And now I thought I was just on the hook for a fish at a fish tank or fish bowl.
You went on the bowl.
But now I got a small tank, 2 fish, water, which I didn't need, gravel, like a mermaid thing, and then a longhorn. It's not actually. It looks like a longhorn.
Okay.
And
it's a skull.
and that's going into the fish tank. Okay. All right. So now now we need fish food, and she's like, for these fish you need this type of fish food. Really? Like, when I go. Well, I used to go fishing with my dad when I was younger. I used to just bring like the Wonder Bread and throw it into the water. You can't do that. You need the actual fish food. And I come in the office, and Fran here tells me I need to get certain type of fish conditioner. I'm at the point. It's been like 4 weeks now, so I need to change the water.
You're past that point.
Oh,
it's been 4 weeks. Yeah.
Emily asked me 2 weeks ago. I was like, I think it's every month.
No, it's more than that.
Okay. So here's the thing. I don't know how to clean the water. I gotta watch a YouTube video for how to clean this water.
No, I told you.
You're not.
No.
Prepared
You told
for
me
fish ownership.
the drops. But how do I get the water out and put it back?
It's really
I have to
easy.
Vacuum it or something.
You can do that. That's great.
That's what I saw a YouTube video.
How big is
I'll tell you. Let me pull up the receipt.
Yeah,
here.
I'm speaking from experience of like 3 months of being a fish owner because it was just a random Saturday. I was home doing work, and I was home, and Meg and Francis showed up. Fish tank, gravel. A turtle that goes in, like not a real turtle, but like a turtle ornament that goes inside, and this fish named Blue Sky, and they all go into the tent. And she's like, yeah. By the way, we're leaving in a half hour. Can you just set up the fish tank before we go? I have no idea that this is happening. Like, so I had to do all this research really fast. We get the fish in the tank. But yeah, no. So I don't have a ton of experience, like over the course of my life. But I will say, you need to change that water like every 10 days. I think 7 to 10 days.
7 to 10 days.
I think that's what they say. But here's what you do.
Like a miracle.
No, but here's all I do. How big is the tank?
I'm pulling it up now. Here, I'm pulling it up.
So our tank is like the size of my laptop. Like it's like this about this big. If you just change out like the top like third of the water.
Yeah.
More routinely, like more often, then you don't need to do a full water change every 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, so just do the top of it.
So yeah, just basically get like a little cup.
Yeah.
Dump,
and then they use that thing that you sent.
And then use whatever that
in
liquid
the recent orders, it's not coming up in recent orders. I don't know why.
Technology these days.
I hope it.
Because you've been to that store so many times that it's no longer recent.
Yeah, but it was during the bye week. The bye week was
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. So,
but the fish are doing well.
The fish are doing.
I don't know about that.
Do they have names?
Term.
Yeah, they have names.
Oh, no, he doesn't know the names. Oh no.
Forget. I think one was Caitlin, maybe Catherine. Catherine was one, and then Reed's. I forget. It was supposed to be Nemo and Dory, but they changed it, and I forget the names. I don't know these.
Oh, that's so good.
The first week I was feeding him, and its smell was bad. And so you know what? You teach a kid to fish, right? So it's literally it's like if I do it for him, he'll never learn. So I said, Reed, you got to learn how to feed the fish. And now Reed feeds the fish every day. But that's
Don't overfeed. Can't be overfeed.
No, you can't
I
overfeed.
learned that. Trust me, I learned that. So, but anyways, the fish are doing well. It's right next to my office. When I get home, like I got home late last night from Neil. He was so good. But I got home and everything's dark except the fish tanks. It's kind of like a nightlight for me. So it's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Our tank almost took a spill last night.
Oh yeah, that could have been tough.
Well, we walked in and it was dark, and we turned the lights on, and Francis points up to the top of the ceiling. He's like, "What is that?" There's a cicada killer in the house.
Oh wow!
Like one of those giant, cicada killer, like the giant wasps.
No, I've never heard that.
It's like wasps that are like 2 or 3 inches, they're gigantic, and it's just like hanging out on the ceiling. Oh, outstanding by him, but. Meg does not mess with bugs, and she does not mess with bees. And Francis, because of that, like Francis also is not a fan of bees, so they took the dog and they went outside. And I'm looking at this thing. We've got high ceilings when we first walk in. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get this. So I propped the door open. I grabbed the longest broom I could find, and I just started like swatting at it. It came buzzing down, and I took a swing and missed the fish tank by like this much. There was a near disaster, but came out on top.
What's your fish's name?
Blue Sky.
Oh, nice.
The first one, it's a
like the social network, right?
Yeah, I think that's what Francis was going for. When he named it.
He hates Elon, Francis.
So we learned the hard way about the changing the water because the Blue Sky 1 didn't last long, but Blue Sky 2 has lived a happy life for the last 3-4 months.
I have one Eagles other thing to talk about.
Okay. Did I go too long on the fish talk?
No.
Okay.
I think this is going to be one where this is going to be an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
The video of the Sirianni Saquon conversation on the bench, like, this is so heartwarming. Like, what a great thing for Saquon to do. I'm sorry, like, is anybody like listening to the way that conversation went? That was very much like Nick being like, "Hey, Saquon, listen, like, you're 16 yards away from your career high, like." If you want to stay in the game, you could.
He did
I'm going to take
yes.
the starters out.
Right. He did beg the question.
If you don't.
Agree.
Like, it's nice that Saquon takes the hint, but Nick's coming over there to tell him basically, like, hey, like, you could go for this, but, like, I don't want you to.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. But what I appreciated about it, honestly, is that, like, it was almost verbatim to the way Nick described it. Like, I thought Nick Nick dramatized it. And
that's true.
So when I saw the video, I was like, oh God, is this gonna, I put this out, it was in my story, and I was like, oh my God, this is almost verbatim. So I appreciated the authenticity of it. But yeah, you are right. He did beg the question in it.
Right.
Like Nick did not want to. And
it's not like Saquon was like, hey man, take him out, take me out, let the young guys eat. It was like, hey, you could go for it.
But if you heard the full answer that Nick gave, Nick said the other night or the other afternoon, he was like, I was really conflicted there because, like, I didn't want to be the one who puts him out there in a blowout, and like you could definitely hear Nick saying that in his voice.
Yeah.
Although I want to defend Todd Bowles. I know Todd Bowles is getting some heat for Chris Godwin last night. That game wasn't technically over when Godwin was out there.
It was a 10-point game.
Yeah. I think Bowles is getting undue heat today.
I think that's fair. I agree with that. All right. Good episode. I mean, the football talk was good, but the fish stuff, that's what's going to keep people coming back. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I really felt like Larry David to bring it all full circle. I can see that in a Curb episode where they're not selling Larry David the fish.
Oh,
that's the cicada killer.
Oh, man. That's nasty.
Oh, man.
Those things are no joke.
Yeah, that thing would get me worried.
Surprised you didn't know it was a cicada killer.
I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah. They're at NovaCare all the time. They're the giant wasps you see flying around the practice field during training camp. You don't see them?
I just thought that's because the media house hasn't been cleaned in 10 years. Yes.
I never heard that phrase.
Because they only go for cicadas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
NBA starts tonight. Got 2 games tonight. You got what? It's the Knicks Celtics. The Knicks Celtics, and then the Lakers T-Wolves. Looking forward to watching the T-Wolves. Looking forward to watching the Knicks Celtics.
Do you think that you are the biggest non-Celtics, non-Missoula family member fan of Joe Mazzulla in the world?
No, probably not. But
you're on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. I mean, there's people in West Virginia who love him, I imagine. People at Fairmount State, I imagine, who feel the same way. Maybe some Maine Red Claws fans.
I doubt that.
But yeah, I mean, I covered Joe Mazzulla for 3 NCAA tournaments at West Virginia. So it was one of those things. I randomly got assigned West Virginia in each of those years, and I remember some Bob Huggins' quotes too, or maybe it was 2 tournaments. And I'm conflating the different regions and brackets, but in any event, I remember him being a go-to quote then, and he's a great quote now as well.
Great.
Nice.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thanks to everybody for sticking with us at the end and watching. We'll be back tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Jamie, Handsome Rich, I believe Vinny Curry joining the show as well. And then on Thursday, little schedule tweak with the Eagles media schedule means that ZB is going to be with us in studio on Thursday. So we're looking forward to that.
I won't be distracted during Swooper. That's a good
on
thing.
Friday.
Don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah, I mean. Oh, we should talk about that, by the way. Swooper, you guys tied.
Yes, 2-2. Kenny Pickett rolling out on his lone drop back and his second drop back and not throwing the ball to Grant Calcaterra cost me the win. So
I will very quickly go through it.
Okay.
Zach, the Eagles score in the first quarter, did not happen. The Eagles recover a fumble on defense, did not happen. The Eagles get a first down or touchdown on the opening drive, did happen. Saquon Barkley has the most rushing yards in the game for either team, did happen. The Eagles score on each of their first 2 drives, did not happen. I had the Eagles sideline draws a penalty flag, and the player who wins this item has at least as many of their submitted items hit this week as the other 2 players. Obviously didn't happen. Big boner by me. Speaking of Blue Chew, Fran, an Eagle scores his second touchdown of the season, did not happen. Josh Sweat gets at least a half sack, did happen. At some point, either team has exactly 26 points, did not happen. The Eagles tight ends combined for at least 2 catches. You paid 7 turkeys for it. Kenny Pickett let you down. Yeah. And then Saquon Barkley leads the Eagles in rushing too. So you guys are tied. And that means that Zach, you're going to bump up to 0.83 wins. And Fran, you're going to jump ahead with 2.33 wins. And I will have 1.83 as we move forward. Fran, you have 7 turkeys left over. Zach, you have 6 turkeys left over. I have -14. So there we go.
I guess I could also put Kenny Pickett wasn't the only one. You know, if Jalen had thrown that first throw to Grant Calcaterra in the flat on that first sack of the game,
that's true.
That could have been a tight end.
How much does he really trust Jack Stoll, right?
Right. I mean, clearly not enough to give me a win.
All right. That'll do it for this episode. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. You tell your friends, all that good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks to Julia for making it happen. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.